it as VM1 and VM2 on the same data center. But it is also mentioned that both the VMs should have the same configuration, right? So when we take up the difference between the previous experiment, in the previous experiment we had a single VM. We had single VM on the single host. So because there was only one cloudlet which was allocated to the VM by the cloudlet, the respective single cloudlet is assigned to the single VM by the broker. So that was the first experiment. Whereas now, as a part of second experiment, so as you need to know about the or based on the problem definition, you will have to create the two cloudlets for same capacity. And in order to execute or run these two cloudlets based on the problem definition, you will have to create the two VMs on the same host. Then the broker will be assigning the respective cloudlet to the individual VMs. As such, cloudlet 1 to the VM1 and cloudlet to the VM2, or a reverse way, cloudlet 1 to the VM2 and VM1. Okay, and as far as problem definition, as usual, so you have a specifications of data center, host, and also the VM. And based on the problem definition, it is also clear that the specifications or the capacity of the cloudlets are common for both the cloudlets, and also specifications of both the VMs is kept same. It is the same as two VMs are created with the same configuration. So now you will have to assign the respective cloudlet to the respective VM. Who will be doing that? It is the broker, right? So that's the problem definition. So now before we get into the so here, what are all the things will be changing? What are the things will be changing in the sense? If you observe the whatever we discussed in the previous experiment, as such that Cloudsim example 1. So here we discussed about the first example where we had only one cloudlet and one VM which was assigned by the broker. So that we had in the first experiment. So now, as a part of second experiment, what would be that? What and all will be changing in the sense? So you can observe as a first step there won't be any change where will be initializing the Cloudsim. As a second step also you don't have to change anything because you will have to create the single data center itself. So second step will also remain same. Third step, how many brokers you will be creating? Even the procedure to create the broker will also not be changing from the previous experiment. So it is the same broker. Only the fourth step and the fifth step it will be slightly changing because in the previous experiment we created only one cloudlet and one VM. Now you will have to create two cloudlets and two VMs. So the fourth step and the fifth step there will be a slight changes. We will see what are those changes also, right? So step 4 and step 5 slight changes are required in your program, and as usual then you will be executing as well. Okay, in your procedure, so creating the multiple VMs and creating the multiple cloudlets, so that is where you need to vary from the previous experiment. Again, for your information, so as I mentioned, the first experiment is available in this link. You can also go through that Cloudsim example 1. So even if at all if you want to start from the scratch, so how to set up the Cloudsim in the Eclipse, so that is also given in the a different link. You can also go through this. Okay, now directly let me take you to the Eclipse. Yeah. So this is what Eclipse, where we have already discussed the first experiment in the previous video. Now let me take you to this next program. So what exactly is required as usual? So even what did I said? So initializing the Cloudsim is you don't have to change anything from the previous experiment. Even creating a data center and creating a broker, all these components you don't have to change. So for that, what I'll be doing in the Cloudsim in the Eclipse. So let me clone this first. So let me clone this. Yeah, let me clone it as Cloudsim example 2. Okay, so now this is what Cloudsim example 2 which we'll be talking about. So I just cloned from the example 1 to the 2, and we will see where and all you will have to update the code to make it to satisfy the current problem definition. So as usual, you have the different packages. Let it be as usual. Again, however, we said that so you will have to initialize the Cloudsim. So this is where it will be initialized in the Cloudsim. So it's already done. Again, so creating a data center, we have a method to create a data center, which is create data center. Even the method definition is also available here. Create data center, which has a host specification and the data center specification. Are we changing anything from the previous experiment in the sense? No. In order to know about the complete explanation of this code, you can follow the previous video. Then later, third step, which is creating a broker. Here is the method to create a broker. Again, as usual, we had a create broker method. No change in the create broker method also from the previous program code. Okay. So we are done with the step 3. Now we are entering to the step 4. As we are entering to the step 4, so as usual, so yeah, this is where we are entering to the step 4. Earlier, as usual, we initialize the VM ID as 0, all that, right? So it is the same kind of specifications, VM ID, again MIPS. Okay, for your information, just to make it the difference, as we want to create two VMs, so I'll say VM ID as 1. Okay, and MIPS it was given as 250 based on the problem definition. Again, you can see image size, RAM, and everything is kept as usual, right? Like this I have created, let me create as VM1, and that I'll be adding to the VM list. So what I did, so this is where I created the VM1 and added to the VM list. So one VM is created. But again, as far as problem definition, what it says, your problem definition says that your VM1 and VM2 should have the same configuration. So keeping that in mind, so we let us not change anything in the this configuration part or the specification part. Let the VM1 and VM2 should have the let it have the same specification on those lines. What I'll do, I'll just replicate these lines. I'll just replicate these lines. I'll make it as 2 VM2, and here VM2 is added. But this VM ID earlier, whatever you have initialized as 1. So before I create the VM2, I'll just say plus plus. So now it has become ID as 2. So what we did, so with these specifications, one VM is created. Again, we incremented the VM ID. Now it will be 2. So I'm creating VM2, and VM2 is also added to the VM list. So now this VM list has a 2 VMs which we mentioned as VM1 and VM2. Both of them I'll be submitting to the broker as usual, right? So both of them I'll be submitting to the broker. So I'm done with the step 4 also, where I have created the 2 VMs of same configuration, then added to the VM list, and that VM list I have submitted to the broker. So I'm done with the VM process. Now let me take you to the 5th step, where we'll be creating a cloudlet. Again, as usual, based on the problem definition, you'll have to create the 2 cloudlets of same statement or same configuration. Now for creating a cloudlet, again as usual, so this is where so we have CID as 0. So for your information, again let me change it as CID as 1. Okay, now again this also let me make it as cloudlet 1. Okay, cloudlet 1 is created. For the cloudlet 1, broker ID is assigned, then cloudlet 1 is added to the cloudlet list. Is it not? In the similar way, we need to create one more cloudlet. For that sake, what I'll be doing, let me create as cloudlet 2. That cloudlet 2 I'll be assigning with the broker ID, right? So for that, I'll also be cloudlet 2 is also added to the cloudlet list, but the CID is not yet incremented. So let me increment that CID. Done. So cloudlet 1 is created, cloudlet 2 is created, both of them have included in the cloudlet list, and that cloudlet list you have submitted to the broker, right? So now this is where, so 2 VMs are created, 2 cloudlets are created, both of them you have submitted to the broker. Okay, I repeat, as of now, 2 cloudlets are created and 2 VMs are created. Now, both of them you have submitted to the broker also. Now, it is the role of your broker which has to assign the respective cloudlet to the respective VM. I repeat, it is the broker who has to assign the respective cloudlet to the respective VM. And who will be doing that? it is the cloud, it is the broker. How? Because cloudlet is already having the cloudlet is already having the both, which is cloudlet and also broker is already having the both cloudlet and also the VMs, right? Now let us do that, which is broker process. Broker, so it is a broker, right, which is doing the task. So broker dot submit. What are we submitting? It is the cloudlet. Okay, so here itself you can observe. So we will be submitting the basically submission is already done, right? Okay, you can observe here itself we have submitted the cloudlet and here we have submitted the what VM list. Submission is already done, so I thought we are not done. So it's already submission is already done. Now we need to bind the respective cloudlet to the respective VM, so for which we'll be using the bind method, right? So broker dot bind. See, as soon as I type as broker dot bind, okay, I'm getting that method, which we have to use, which is broker dot bind cloudlet to the respective VM. And in this, so it is directly telling you what we are binding to what. So which is first CID, which will be binding to the VM ID. What is CID? Which is the cloudlet IDs. And how many CIDs we have? We will be having two CIDs. One is 1 and the 2, because here we have incremented. In the similar way, VM ID will also be 2. So where initially it would be 1, then later we made it as 2. As of now it is only 1 and 2, but what if it is couple of plenty? In such case, the best way not to use directly as CID VM ID. Instead of that, let us fetch it from the method. How to fetch it from the method? So first parameter is cloudlet ID. Keep that in mind. How to fetch it? In a sense, as usual, we have cloudlet 1, right? We have cloudlet1 dot get. So as soon as I say get, so what I'm getting, I'm not getting the get class type. I don't need the class type. I know I need the cloudlet ID. I need what? Cloudlet ID. So like that, cloudlet1 dot get cloudlet ID. In the similar way, this is where I need the VM ID, and VM ID of what? First it is VM1. Okay, VM1 dot get. As soon as I say that VM1 dot get ID, so this is where I'll be using VM1 dot get ID. So like this, what I did in a sense, by using this bind method, cloudlet 1 is bind or assigned to the VM1. Similar way, let me replicate this. So what are we going to do? VM cloudlet 2 is assigned to the VM2. Is it compulsory everywhere? Every time you have to assign the one VM1 to the cloudlet 1 to the VM1 itself? In a sense, not necessarily. You can also interchange them, right? So that is only the difference. The rest of the code I don't have to do anything, because as I mentioned in my procedure itself, we need to only changes is that. So it is only means of changing the multiple, creating the multiple VMs and creating the multiple cloudlets. And this is where, so as we saw here, this is where the respective cloudlet is assigned to the respective VM by the broker, right? Now we are done with assigning the cloudlet to the VMs. Now let us execute this program. So now the execution, we got the output. So you can observe. So you can observe, or you can see the scenario where a single data center, where we have mentioned, then we have given the name of the data center as data center 0. This we have discussed in the previous program itself. You can see this is the name of the data center, which is initialized, right? Broker is also initialized. Now you are starting the entities at 0. So you are initializing the CIS, right? Then you're trying to create the VM1, you're trying to create the VM2. VM1 has been created at what time? It is very important, you have to mention VM1 is created at 0.1 second, VM2 is also created 0.1 second. Then the broker is assigning the cloudlet 1 to the VM1, cloudlet 2 to the VM2. That is based on what? That is based on whatever you are specified here, right? Then as usual, so broker has done with the, it's a cloudlet 1 is done. So once after the process is done at what time, which is 1600 seconds 0.1, so you will be destroying VM1 and VM2 also. Then you will be shutting down everything. Now you see the status of two cloudlets whatever you have created. Cloudlet 1 is definitely success. both the cloudlets are in the same data center where they are assigned to the different VMs. Okay, see, cloudlet 1 is assigned to the VM1, cloudlet 2 is assigned to the VM2. Whereas you can observe it is taking that same time, which is 1600 seconds, which is starting at 0.1 second, ending at 1600.1 seconds. So totally 1600 seconds it is taking. You can also measure it as a milliseconds. Okay, so it is all based on the parameters will be specifying. But here, so if you ask me why it is taking the same time, in the sense, definitely based on the problem definition, what would you say in the problem definition? The task is also of same capacity, a VMs is also of same capacity. So both the VMs has the same configuration, both the task has the same capacity. In such case, so definitely you can expect the time is also same. If at all, if you want to see the differences, if we want to see the difference, let us see here. Now what has happened, in the sense, understand. So the length of your cloudlet is of 4 lakh instructions, as the length of your cloudlet is 4 lakh instructions, and the MIPS of your VM is only 250, so it is taking 1600 seconds. But suppose instead of that, I'll say it as the MIPS of your VM is like this. Okay, MIPS of your VM is 1000. In such case, if I execute, so definitely the time is only 400 seconds, 400 milliseconds or 400 seconds, you say it as, because 4000 instructions can be executed within 400 seconds, because my capacity, my million instructions per second is been increased. But one thing is for sure, you can understand here. If at all, if you want to see the okay, if at all, if you want to see the what if at all, if you want to see, now one more point I would like to highlight here. See, when I execute the program by setting the MIPS of VM as 250, so I'm getting as both the cloudlets have been processed within 1600 seconds. But whenever I set as 1000, as soon as I set the MIPS of my VM as 1000, and when I execute, you see the difference in the output. I'm getting the only one cloudlet is processed by one VM1. Whatever the cloudlet 2, where it has gone, where the problem has occurred, in the sense, it is not the problem of something else. Understand, my dear, it is because of the MIPS. What I mean to say, as we have discussed in the previous experiment also, as you are placing the VM on the host, so MIPS of your host is what, 1000, where we have set in the program. In the sense, you can observe, come down, go to the create data center method. This is where you are setting the MIPS for your what host. What you did in what, whenever I changed the MIPS of VM is also 1000, what has happened, in the sense, MIPS of your host is also 1000, MIPS of VM is also 1000, means at a time only one VM can process, because available MIPS is what, 1000, available capacity of your host is what, 1000. VM, for VM also, if you set 1000, only one VM can run at a time, other VM will be in shutting down. I mean, say it will not be in the processing mode. So only here you can see only one cloudlet is processed by the only one VM. The other VM cannot process, because available the host MIPS and the VM MIPS is same. But suppose if you want to see the difference, let me make it as 500. Now, so for the VM, I have set the MIPS as 500, and the host has what, 1000 MIPS. How many VMs I am placing? 2 VMs. See, 2 VMs are there, where each for which I had set 500 MIPS. Now let's see what will be the difference. See, can you observe now? So now it is, now you can observe as cloudlet 1 is also processed, cloudlet 1 is processed by the VM1, and cloudlet 2 can also be processed by the VM2, which is of same time. That timing is same. But I hope you got it. So when the MIPS, whenever it's changed as 1000, only one VM could able to run, because the MIPS of your host and MIPS of whatever you're setting for the VM, if it is same, should not be same or more than, right. I hope it is cleared. Now for your additional information, so why you are getting only 800 seconds or 800 milliseconds for both the, say, in the sense, because you are setting the MIPS for both as 500 itself. Let us take an example. For here I set as 500, and before I create the VM2, I'll change it as 250. Okay, before I create the second VM, I'll change it as 250, right. So I'll say it as MIPS 1. Okay, now you see, MIPS for the VM1 is what? 500, whereas MIPS for the VM2 is what? 250. Now you see the difference. See, VM1 can complete the same task within 800 seconds, whereas VM2 is taking 1600 seconds. So like that, where the capacity of the VM1 is greater than VM2. See, these are all additional things, but so as of your problem statement says both the VMs should be of same capacity. So for that reason, I'll just remove this and make sure that both the VMs, both the cloudlets can be processed by both the VMs and taking the same time, right? And also I hope you understood the MIPS whatever you set for the VMs should not be more than the what? Consolidated MIPS of your VM should not be more than the available host MIPS. Even for your information, you see here, if I set as 2000, if I set as 2000, MIPS for the VM I am setting as 2000, whereas MIPS for your host it is only 1000. Now you see what you are going to get it as. See, not even single VM you can process because available host MIPS itself is 1000, but you are trying to set the 2000 MIPS for your VM, which is not possible. So only you can observe not even single cloudlet is processed by single VM. You cannot create, whatever the host you create, it cannot process. So only you can observe here. It is getting the error, or it is showing you the exception as allocation of VM to the host 0, it is failed. VM1 cannot be allocated on the host because of the MIPS, right? So this is all about the current experiment. Thank you.